begin this podcast, we would like to acknowledge that Queens is situated on traditional Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. We are grateful to be able to live, learn, and play on these lands.
Hello to all of our listeners. I'm Sydney from Queens Peer Health Educators Substance Use Team, and today we're going to be talking about a wide range of topics, including what to do when your friend has had too much to drink, how and when to access the CORE, QFA, or other emergency services, safer substance use practices, and much more. I'm happy to introduce our guest, Naomi Nash. Naomi Nash is the mental health executive of Queens First Aid. If you've called the Queens Emergency Response Center or seen a friend who's had too much to drink being checked up on, there's a chance you've met her. Naomi, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with QFA.
Thank you so much, Sydney, for the lovely introduction and for having me at Queens First Aid. We're all big fans of the peer health educators. I know personally when I was in first year, I didn't know a lot of information about drinking, so definitely benefited from the education that your club provided. And now, how I got involved with Queens First Aid, if I refer to it as QFA, I'm meaning Queens First Aid just throughout this podcast. So I started on QFA in second year after seeing them at numerous orientation events. I got a tour of the house that they operated out of, which is the big house kind of randomly sitting beside Vic Hall residence, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
Yeah. So when I did that tour, everyone seemed super friendly, and I figured why not apply. Fast forward, I'm now a supervisor on the unit, and I'm currently the mental health officer on the executive team. I seriously cannot say enough good things about my time so far in this club. Everyone is super lovely, and you really have a cool opportunity to be involved with students and help them out on campus. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and QFA.
Thanks for sharing all of that, Naomi.
Yeah, no problem.
I know there are a lot of services on campus that treat substance use. For example, the CORE admits students to a non-judgmental space where they can be monitored while sleeping off their drinking. And I also know that the hospital admits students. So how is QFA different from these other services?
Yeah, that is a great question and one we often get. So Queens First Aid, first and foremost, we're a confidential and professional service that responds to medical emergencies, but not just drinking. So we differ from the CORE, whereas the CORE is open on the weekends I think they're actually open Friday, Saturday from 9 to 7, and they're primarily a service for students to sleep off the alcohol that they drank, whereas we could get called to many different things like intramurals or other events on campus. So that's how we differ from the CORE. We actually bring a lot of students to the CORE, so it is a phenomenal resource that I'm super glad we have on campus. Also, unlike the CORE, we treat anyone, so it could be profs, members from Kingston, so not just students. They just have to be on the Queen's University campus. But how we differ from hospitals in paramedics is we obviously have less education since we are a peer-led service. So if you're unsure what to do, you can always give us a call and we can help you sort it out. I think part of the value in Queens First Aid service is that we are peer-led, so many students may feel like it's less intimidating. So don't hesitate to give us a call if you're not sure what to do.
Oh, like if they're underage or...
Yeah, I think a lot of times people worry about being in trouble or just, obviously, please do call the paramedics if an emergency situation arises and you think that's what you need. But sometimes it can just be a bit stressful trying to figure out what to do, especially if there's alcohol involved. So we can just come oversee it and help figure out the best plan forward and what to do. Whoever gives a call.
That's awesome. I'm super glad we have you guys on campus as well as the CORE. Now I want to switch gears and talk about student drinking culture. Now it's no surprise that Queens has a bit of a student drinking culture. Many students would attest to that and they'd be correct. However, a lot of students are incorrect in their assumption of how much their peers drink. In 2019, the National College Health Assessment did a survey that showed that queens estimate that their peers engage in drinking a lot more than they actually do. So the percentages I'm about to say are the actual drinking percentages in the last 30 days versus the perceived use in the last 30 days. All right, so alcohol. The actual amount that students drank in the past 30 days was 81%. However, students thought that 95% of them were drinking within the past 30 days. With cannabis, in the last 30 days, 32% of students used the substance, but they perceived other students to be using 92%, which is quite a big difference. Yeah. And with cocaine, students were reported to have used 4% of students were using, versus a perceived amount of 58% of students using in the past 30 days, which is quite a difference.
Yeah, that's significant.
Yeah, it's quite significant. And so the significance of these percentages is to show that people really perceive their peers as using a lot more substances than they actually are. And an increased perception of substance use can lead to pressure to use substances.
Yeah, so you're saying that if I assume that everyone around me is drinking, then I'd be more likely to feel pressure to drink, when in reality, I could be overestimating the amount that my peers are drinking?
Yes, so that's correct. So university students tend to overestimate how much their peers drink, and then this leads them to drink themselves.
Okay.
And this is an issue because studies have shown attending a college with more heavy drinking peers can increase the risk of consequences on a student's health. So in the study I'm referring to, heavy drinking was defined as 5 or more drinks in a sitting for men and 4 or more drinks in a sitting for women. And basically the consequences included unsafe sex practices, injuries, and substance use disorders. So Naomi, I know you primarily treat first years since you're on campus. How do you think this information is relevant to them in terms of feeling the peer pressure to drink?
Yeah, so definitely students of all years could experience peer pressure. But like you mentioned, we only respond to people on campus, so primarily first years. So I do think living in residence is a wonderful part of the university experience and can be very positive for some people. However, it's good to acknowledge that you are living so close with your peers, so this could produce a herd mentality around drinking. And with so many peers around you, it could seem like everyone is drinking, when in reality, it's just a few different groups each night, or not nearly as many people. So I think there's tons of pros to living with peers, but also there could be some misconceptions. And depending on who you live with and the group you live with, you could just generalize, oh, if like people on my floor drink, it must be like everyone drinks, or just like as a very small sample of the university population.
I think we all had that experience in residence. And then there was that mentality that led us to drink more because of the increased perception of drinking. Mm-hmm. I also think that with social media, we're not only seeing our peers drink, but we're seeing our peers through social media, which just increases our exposure to other people's drinking habits. And I know that seeing other people drinking when you're not can make you feel like you should be.
Yeah, I think it's really important you brought up social media too, because not only do we see people drinking on social media, but people post on social media when they're having fun. So if I'm constantly scrolling through my Snapchat stories or my Instagram stories, and I see pictures or videos of people drinking, and it always looks like they're having fun. So I know personally, when I see that, if I'm at home doing homework or if I'm doing something else, I can kind of just feel left out, if that makes sense. But, you know, in reality, we're only seeing the highlights of drinking posts on social media, and we're not seeing the lows that can occur after or even during.
Yeah, there are some lows for sure. I'm assuming some of those lows are the hangover the next morning.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the lows can be even more serious, like the ones I suggested above, the serious consequences of increased risk of injury, unsafe sex practices, or developing a substance use disorder. So with those in mind, what can students do to stay safe while drinking and avoid these serious consequences and avoid the effects of peer pressure?
Yeah. That's a good question. I know peer pressure can be very dynamic. It has many different factors, so there's many ways we can reduce the peer pressure. So I would say first, just remember those statistics that you mentioned before, that people may not be drinking as much as you think they are. So you might not be as left out as you presume you are. Also, if you want to engage with peers who are drinking, but you don't want to drink, I would say just put water in your cup and you can play the same games as everyone else.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah, and for the most part, I feel like, did people notice or say anything to you when you did that?
No, they didn't care.
Yeah, so I just think people may not care as much as you assume they would care. I would hope not. And just something else to add on that point was, if you are someone who's drinking in a social situation and someone is choosing not to, you can help make the space more comfortable for them by just not questioning the reason behind them not drinking. If someone says they don't drink, you can just say no problem and move on. There's many reasons people don't drink, and if they don't explain why, it's none of your business to focus on. So you can just help not make that person feel left out by questioning it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you can encourage the water for them in terms of a substitute for the drinking game,
exactly.
So they can play as
Still
well.
have fun. Yeah. And I would say too, come up with alternatives for social gatherings that aren't alcohol related. I've had lots of fun this year going to movies with my housemates, even going on walks or trying different things that Kingston has to offer. So definitely there's really cool social gathering opportunities in Kingston that you can do with friends that aren't alcohol related.
Yeah, those are some really good tips for handling peer pressure. And in case those don't work out, it's important to have a further harm reduction plan. So, for example, as you said, having a substitute like water, but also switching to less harmful alternatives if you are going to drink. For example, consuming drinks that have lower alcohol percentages. So instead of hard alcohol or wine, drinking coolers or beers, or even coolers that aren't 5% but are 2.5%.
Mm-hmm.
Also to space out your drinking, trying to stick to 1 drink per hour, and to replace the effects of substance in other healthier ways. So if you're drinking to alleviate stress of school, maybe seek out help. And speaking of seeking out help, I was wondering, since you're the mental health executive, if you have any advice for students who are juggling with their mental health and substance use.
Yeah, that's a great question. Just important to consider, I'm not a professional, so I would say if you think you need help or know someone who needs help, definitely consult a professional. But in general, I would just say to recognize why you're drinking. So drinking to celebrate a special occasion, or if you're getting together with a group of friends once in a while, is one thing. But if you're drinking because you don't want to avoid your problems, or if you feel like you need to drink to feel better, then that could be another thing, and it's a sign that it's time to reach out and receive some help. Definitely, though, if you think that there could be an issue, there is no harm trying to find help. The sooner you get help, the better you could feel. So I would just say, if you have any sense that this could be something that you're struggling with, definitely reach out.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of students drink to reduce the stress of school, and some people who have social anxiety might drink so that it's easier for them to engage socially. But that can be a slippery slope from helpful to harmful. And drinking to reduce feelings of anxiety or depression can create a dependency that increases the severity of these problems in the long run, which is why the harm reduction plan I stated above is really important. So I know you mentioned that it's really important for them to reach out. So if someone is struggling, where exactly could they get help?
Yeah, so if someone is struggling, I just really want to emphasize they're not alone. There's lots of resources available to you on and off campus. I know it can be daunting to reach out for help, so if you do, just that takes a lot of courage, so just be kind to yourself in the process. But in terms of resources, there is healthy lifestyle appointments available at the Student Wellness Center to address substance abuse, so you can help kind of make a plan to work through some of the issues you could be experiencing. There's also the same-day mental health appointments with a counselor that you could call and access. I know Kingston Public Health has mental health and addiction services too that you could check out if you're not wanting to check out the services on campus. And if you ever just wanted to talk further with someone, there is the Peer Support Center. And if you're in a problem that needs some attention right away, you can always give QFA a call. When you give us a call us through the Emergency or Sports Center and ask for QFA, and we can be discharged. Also, again, don't hesitate to call the paramedics if you think that this could be a more serious matter, so calling 911. And then there's also the core that you could go to or bring a friend to, and walk home if you ever just wanted to walk home.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned all those resources, because I feel like we don't talk about mental health and substance use enough, like how they interact. Now I kind of want to switch topics and talk about what students should do if they drink over their limit, specifically in regards to alcohol poisoning. I assume that you've responded to multiple cases of alcohol poisoning with QFA, and I want to know what it looks like and what students should do when they see signs of it in their peers.
Yeah, good question. So I would say, first off, if you're with your peers, you can kind of know how much they've had to drink. So with that, it's super helpful to us when we get a call if peers can tell us how much they've drank and any other substances they would have had. Just know that you're not in trouble, even if you're underage. We're here to help. We're not here to get you in trouble. So keep that in mind, because I think that can be a worry for many people accessing our services. But some signs to look out for would be confusion, vomiting, seizures, slow breathing, which is typically less than 8 breaths a minute, irregular breathing, which is a gap of more than 10 seconds between breaths, blue-tinged skin or pale skin, low body temperature, any passing out when they can't be awakened. So, any of those, call us or call the paramedics if you think it's more serious. We're here to help. And one thing that you could do while you're waiting is just put your friend in the recovery position if you know what that looks like.
Yeah, thank you. Those are all some really helpful tips. Well, that's actually all the time we have today, but I want to thank you again for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. We're grateful you could share your experience and expertise, and this information will definitely be very helpful to some students.
Thanks for having me.
So, all right, if you guys want to see more of us, visit us on Facebook or Instagram at Queen's University Be Well. We do tons of giveaways and love to see you guys participate. If you want to see more of Queen's First Aid, you can go to their website at www.queensfirstaid.com or their Facebook or Instagram at Queen's First Aid. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Take a listen to some of our other peer health educator podcasts, and we'll see you guys next time.